Welcome to your pre-assessment guide for winch and skidding. This is a guide to help you prepare for your assessment, and today to do that we're joined by Michael Crutchley.
Hello.
Who's a registered MPTC assessor and Lantra trainer, plus he has 20 years experience as a contractor in the forest industry, so we'll be picking his brains today. My name is Sarah Chapman and I'm from MJ Woodland Services, and we're going to guide you through a series of 3 videos on the winch and skidding. And this is a guide to help you prepare for your assessment, demonstrating good practice techniques and the knowledge needed. These videos have been made possible through the support of an innovative training scheme called Forestry Focused Future, and today we are supported by Gareth Davis from Coy Cymru through the use of his site. These videos are a guide to help prepare you for your assessment, but you should always seek formal training and use your qualification guidance, which is what you're issued by your assessment centre before taking an assessment. Right, we've moved on to the second video in the series of 3 for the use of the winch and skidding. So in this second video we're going to look at the setup of the winch, and we're going to focus on the safety and the hazard zones, and as part of your assessment you need to explain about debogging, and we're going to use the self-recovery method. But first of all we're going to discuss the common faults that are seen most and what you mustn't do during an assessment, basically your good practice. So what are the most common faults that you experience?
Common faults, incorrect chokering, putting the chains or the strops on the wrong way round or in the wrong places, and then most worrying is standing in the danger zones.
Okay, so you'll be expected to explain how to drive in the woodland with a skidder and various procedures involved. So we're all ready to go. So what are we going to do to start off with?
Before we set off then, you want to just make sure everything's secured, and then lift the winch, and if you've got one a stacking blade so nothing is close to the ground, so you're free to go.
So we've lifted the winch and the butt plate off the floor. So what sort of thing have we got? What sort of, when we're thinking about selection of gears and stuff like that, have we got to consider?
You want, well, as I say, with the right gear, but you want a gear that's going to give you the right speed to go out, but not so high that you don't get enough revs, because you need the revs to be able for the steering and everything all to work sufficiently. You get enough power to them, but you don't want to be so fast going out. You're going to be bouncing around in the cab and damaging the machine, or potentially running away or not be able to stop. So yeah, you want a nice steady speed but a reasonable amount of revs, just enough power for all the functions to work properly. Okay,
so if we're in the wood it's not always good terrain underneath, so we might start to lose some traction, or we might want to have to turn quite tightly around some obstacles. So what have we got to think of when driving in relation to what's available to us?
Where it's available you can engage 4-wheel drive, so you know, sharing the traction or the power between all 4 wheels. You can apply diff lock to make sure, so all the wheels are actually going to turn properly, but make sure you disengage that before you want to turn, because with diff lock you'll just go straight on, which can be embarrassing. And it's also, if you do want to turn tightly, if you're using a tractor you can use the independent brakes, so lock one wheel, cause the tractor to turn tighter. Obviously that's not much help in an articulated vehicle.
So as usual in forestry we're normally on some sort of slope. Very rare do we have a nice bit of level ground. So when we're driving the winch and skidder on a slope, what have we got to consider?
I hate to say it again, but obviously you want to be in the right gear before you go up and down, because you want to be able to make all the way uphill and downhill without having to change gear. When you are going downhill, look at the surface to think what chances are of running away, and if it is going to run away, do you have a suitable place to run out to, or are you going to go off the cliff? And on side slopes, is it a sensible side slope to you on? Are you going to slide off it? Are you going to turn over? And thinking about how your vehicle will work on a side slope, you're going to have to want to turn downhill or uphill, depending on whether it's an articulated or rigid vehicle.
As well as how the vehicle is being driven across up a slide slope or up and downhill, there's obviously your load on the back, and your load could be right tight up to the butt plate. So what have we got to consider that might happen while driving across slopes or up and downhill with your load?
Yeah, you obviously got to consider the difference between operating the machine with no load on and loaded. Because when you are driving with a load behind, you've got to think, well, how are you going to interact with that? Coming down slopes, you've got to be careful it isn't going to push you on. You can bang up behind you and pushing you down the slope. And on side slopes, be very aware it might slide sideways and pull you off down into the abyss with it. So where there is a risk of the load sweeping sideways and taking you off, it's advisable to leave fells and trees along that edge high, leave the stumps high so the trees run against that rather than sliding off down the slope, so they stay in line with the vehicle. If there's two of you doing the winching operation, beforehand you obviously agree with each other what is going to happen, whose roles and responsibilities are, and make sure everyone's wearing high-vis helmets and everyone's keeping into the safety zones before anything happens. And then if you've got them, use two-way radios for communication. You can use the force, but it doesn't always work. The other one is hand signals, so if you want them to winch in, that one. Want them to stop, that. And you want some slack in the rope, that. But everyone has their own other signals, but make sure you agree beforehand, because there's nothing like people getting them wrong.
Okay, so with debogging, Mike, we're going to discuss the self-recovery method. So can you explain what that involves?
We're assuming we've driven headfirst into the bog with the tractor, so in which case the winch is available to us to pull ourselves out backwards with it. So, we've got a winch on the tractor, why go find another winch? We use the one we've got to hand.
Okay, so what equipment are we going to need to winch ourselves out of this wonderful bog we're in?
In addition to the winch, we're going to need, a selection of strops and pulleys and chains and things to actually attach it, so we can actually got something to attach the winch back to pull ourselves out.
So what are we going to use to anchor the winch to pull ourselves out of this wonderful bog?
Principally the choice is we want to look for the biggest stump or tree or object vehicle that we can find within range of our rope to give ourselves the best chance. To give us more pull, we might actually need to double the rope up, in which case we're using a pulley to bring the rope back to the winch, and then we're going to find somewhere on the winch itself to attach nice and secure, whether it be there or through the tow hitch.
Right, so we've identified our anchor point and what we're going to do with that. So how are we going to actually run the rope out to that?
Okay, normally we'd use the top pulley to give us more stability, pushes the winch plate into the ground, so when we actually pull in, it always stops the tractor coming backwards. On this occasion, we actually want the tractor to go backwards, so we're much better off now running the rope into the bottom pulley. So when we pull now, the force is to lift the winch up, so we actually stand a chance of coming backwards.
So we've selected our anchor, we've got our wire rope out, and we're going to create uplift rather than bog it further down by using the second pulley, the lower pulley. We've attached it to our anchor. So how are we now actually going to get it out of the bog? How are we going to drive it out of the bog? What should we do?
Well, now we want to use the winch and give ourselves extra assistance, actually drive the tractor. So we jump inside, start the engine, put it into gear, obviously reverse as we're going backwards. Nice low speed, set the hand throttle just above fast tick over, and then we've got PTO in, and just push on the winch, and between the two of them find traction and a bit of winching and just pull yourself out gently, not too fast, not too slow, just the right speed.
Okay, so we've driven ourselves out of the bog now, and so what have we got to finish off with once we've actually climbed out of the bog?
Oh, we're nice tidy bunnies, so what we're going to do now, we're going to take the system apart, inspect the equipment, make sure it's still in good condition, anything that's not serviceable, discard or put not to be used, and then just stow it away, whether it's back on the machine itself or in our ancillary vehicles.
Well, that's the explanation on how to debog, and you will have to explain to your assessor as part of your assessment for the winch and skidder on debogging. There is a FISA guide available, and there'll be reference to this at the end of the video. As part of your assessment, you'll also need to know about health and safety legislation, emergency procedures, waste disposal, environmental damage, PPE and record keeping. Now, information on all of these can be found on our base machine assessment videos, so you need to check those out, as well as the other 2 videos on winch and skidding in this series. So make sure you watch all 3 videos for the winch and skidder, and then go and check out the videos on the PPE, etc. in the base machine assessments. Plus, you need to read your FISA guides, which are available on the FISA website, and reference to these will come up shortly. So we'd like to thank Mike for his time today,
Thank you.
and we wish you the best of luck.